നാരായണാഖിലഗുരോ ഭഗവൻ നമസ്തേ ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ. Good morning to all and pranamam to everyone who has joined. With the blessings of our Punya Guruvayoorappan, we are holding our 8th session of our Narayaneeyam series. Today we will start Dashakam 5. And before we start, we will start with a small invocation.
Krishna Guruvayurappa Sharanam Gajananam Bhutaganadisevitam Kapittajambhu Phalasarabhakshitam Umasutam Shokavinashakaranam Namami Vikhneshwara Padapankajam शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये कृष्णा गुरुवायूरप्पा शरणम्.
Narayana Guruvayurappa. So we are starting Dashakam 5 today. We completed Dashakam 4 in our last two sessions. So before we start, we'll start off by looking at what we discussed in Dashakam 4, or Bhattathiri tried to convey to us in Dashakam 4. If you see in Dashakam 4, Bhattathiri spoke about the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, and how we can attain Bhagavan through the Ashtanga Yoga, through by practicing Ashtanga Yoga, how we can attain Bhagavan. So essentially, in Dashakam 4, what Bhattathiri was talking about was an approach where we try to go from outwards to inwards. That means we are trying to bring our mind under our control and our senses under our control, and we are focusing on our antaratma. We have a jivatma in us, and then there is the paramatma also in us. Bhagavan is also in us. So the focus in Dashakam 4 was going from outward, because our senses and our mind are always outward. It is projected outwards. So that he was telling us the way to bring it all into inwards to us, right? That means focusing all into our own antaratma and then attaining Bhagavan. That was the focus in Dashakam 4. However, we each of us are different. Each of us have a different vasanas and tendencies in us. So this process may not be feasible for everyone. This is one path that one can follow to attain Bhagavan, where we go inwards, but that may not be possible for everyone. So Bhattacharya in Dashakam 5 is talking about another sadhana, or another way of looking at it. That is, to instead of going from outwards to inwards, we go from inwards to outwards. The Bhagavan in us is the Bhagavan everywhere. So the focus in Dashakam 5 is to go from inwards to outward. That means understanding that whatever we see around, in the world is nothing but Bhagavan. The world that we see around, the animals that we see around, the people that we see around, the people who love us, the people who hate us, all the experiences that we have in this world is nothing but Guruvayoorappan himself. So the point, the focus in this Dashakam 5 is also a sadhana where we look at the world as Bhagavan. The world itself is Bhagavan. That is called Virat Purusha. Virat Purusha is Bhagavan as the world that we see. So everything that we see around is nothing but Bhagavan, and that is the focus in Dashakam 5. So we start with the first sloka of Dashakam 5.
व्यक्ताव्यक्तमिदं न किञ्चिदभवत् प्राक्प्राकृतप्रक्षये मायायां गुणसाम्यरुद्धविकृतौ त्वय्यागतायां लयम् नो मृत्युश्च तदामृतं च समभूत् नानो नरात्रे स्थितिः तत्रैकस्त्वमशिष्यदा किल പരാനന്ദപ്രകാശാത്മനാ. പണ്ട്, അതായത് മഹാപ്രളയത്തിങ്കൽ, മായ ഗുണസാമ്യത്താൽ തടുക്കപ്പെട്ട വികാരമുള്ളതായിട്ട് അങ്ങയിൽ ലയത്തെ പ്രാപിച്ചതായി തീർന്നപ്പോൾ സ്ഥൂലമായും സൂക്ഷ്മമായും ഉള്ള ഈ പ്രപഞ്ചം ഒട്ടും തന്നെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. അക്കാലത്ത് മൃത്യുവോ അഥവാ സംസാരമോ അമൃതമോ അഥവാ മോക്ഷമോ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. പകലിൻ്റെ സ്ഥിതിയില്ല, രാത്രിയുടെ സ്ഥിതിയുമില്ല, അതായത് ദിനരാത്രങ്ങളില്ല. ആ കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ അവിടുന്ന് പരമാനന്ദ സ്വരൂപനായും പ്രകാശ സ്വരൂപനായും ഏകനായി അവശേഷിച്ചു പോയി.
So in this Dashakam, as we said, we are looking at the Virat Purusha of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the Virat Purusha, the universe that we see. Everything that we see around is that Bhagavan himself. And here Bhattathiri in Dashakam 5 is talking about the Utpatti of that Virat Purusha. How did that universe come into being? That is the cosmic evolution. That is how Bhagavan manifested this whole universe. That is what we are discussing, or Bhattathiri is discussing in this Dashakam. So it is about cosmic evolution, that is Virat Purushotpatti Pragara Varnana. So in this Sloka 1, Bhattathiri says, Prag, which is long ago, Pragrita Prakshaye, that is long ago during this Pralaya, which is called the Pragrita Pralaya. Remember in the last Dashakam we discussed the Pragrita Pralaya, which is the Pralaya that happens after 100 years of Brahmadeva's life. And we'll see that again. But Bhattathiri is saying during that Pragrita Pralaya, is talking about what Bhagavan did. Mayayam, when Maya, which is Maya, we'll see a lot about Maya in this session. Maya is Bhagavan's own cosmic power or creative power. It is the Shakti of Bhagavan. Bhagavan's Shakti is Maya. So Mayayam, that is Bhagavan's creative power. He says, Gunasamya Ruddha Vigradau, whose modifications were neutralized by the equipoise of the three gunas. That means during this Pragrita Pralaya period, everything in the world has dissolved. And we'll see that in more detail in the coming slides. During that time, the three gunas, everything that we see around is made of the three gunas, Satwa, Rajas and Tamas in different proportions. During this Pragrita Pralaya, there is no universe. So then everything has dissolved in Bhagavan, right? That when we'll see that in that period, there is no need for, or there is no use of the Satwa, Rajas and Tamas. So the three gunas, Satwa, Rajas and Tamas, they all came into an equilibrium. They came into an equilibrium or an equipoise, and they got neutralized or they got dissolved in Bhagavan in that period. So this is during Pragrita Pralaya. Everything is dissolved in Bhagavan. And during that period, the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they are in one equilibrium. They became one in equilibrium. And they are now having a layam. They are all dissolved or in latent in Bhagavan. So it says, Tvai Agadayam layam. They all had become latent in thee. They are all now in Bhagavan. And from Bhagavan only, all of these are coming later also. So they are all now in Bhagavan during the Pralaya period. And Bhattathiri further says, Vyakta Avyaktam Idam, this universe that we see around, it is made up of both gross and subtle things. Gross means, we said last time, when we have three bodies, we have our Stula Sharira, then we have our Sukshma Sharira, and we also said we also have a Karana Sharira, causal, right? So Stula Sharira is the gross body. So whatever we see around that we can see, physically, that is all the gross things, gross body. And then there is the subtle things that we cannot directly see. For example, our mind, our intellect, the energies in us, the capability to do something, all of these are subtle elements. We discussed it in Dashakam 4. So during this Pralaya period, all the gross and subtle elements, subtle things in the world, which are both manifested and unmanifested things in the world, which is the universe itself, that also has dissolved in Bhagavan. That is in Bhagavan now. They have got into a layam with Bhagavan. And basically he says, Na kinjit abhavat. They do not exist. Because they are all in layam with Bhagavan. They are all dissolved or in latent on Bhagavan. So they do not exist now. Because they are all in Bhagavan now. So everything that is gross and subtle, they are now in Bhagavan. Tada, at that time, mrityucha, that is death, amridam cha, which is liberation, that is a state of deathlessness. Liberation, moksha is deathlessness. No samabhut, did not exist. There was no mrityu, there was no birth, that is, there is no the cycle of birth and death, going from young age to old age to death, and again getting reborn. None of those activities were going on because they are all now in Bhagavan. There is no such activity. There is nothing called liberation, because liberation is knowing, being on Bhagavan, and there is only Bhagavan now. So there is nothing called liberation. No samabhut. None of this exists. Ahanaha, of day, ratrehe, and of night. That both day and night, everything that we see, the cosmic planet that we see, the astronomical planet that we see, none of this existed because there is, all of that has also dissolved in Bhagavan. So there is no day, there is no night, sthidihi. No, there was no existence of any of that. Tatra, at that time, so there was nothing in this, everything has now dissolved in Bhagavan, is latent in Bhagavan. Only one thing existed. Tatra, then, Tvam, you Guruvayoorappa, Parananda Pragasha Atmana, you alone existed at that time as the supreme bliss consciousness. Bhagavan is that supreme bliss and absolute consciousness, absolute knowledge. He alone existed at that time. Even now also, it is only him who is existing. Everything that we see around is Bhagavan only. Each of us are Bhagavan only. But during this Pralaya period, all of this has got into a layam with Bhagavan, and all of these are in their causal state. Remember, we said we have a Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and a Karana Sharira, which is our causal state. So all these things, they reach their causal state and merged with Bhagavan. Egaha, Bhagavan, and only Bhagavan exists. Egaha, as the only one, is the only one that exists, is the Brahman. The Brahman, the only one that exists. So therefore it's non-dual, Advaita Bhavam. That is, there is nothing else that is existing. Only Bhagavan, right? The only one. Ashishyadaha kila, remain. That he alone remained at that time, certainly. That is what Bhattathiri is talking about during the Pragrata Pralaya period, when everything has dissolved in Bhagavan. So we will see this in a bit more detail in the next slides. So first of all, we discussed this. What is this Pralaya? We said, we said Brahma Deva's 1 day of Brahma Deva is called a Kalpa. I will just quickly mention, not going into the details. In this one Kalpa is when all the creation happens from Brahmadeva creates with Bhagavan's blessings in that Kalpa. And during the night time of Brahmadeva, all the three worlds, Bur, Bhuva, Swara, Logas, they are destroyed. And this is repeated. Next day also, the next creation, the three worlds are again created. And this will continue for 100 years. That is the life of Brahma. 100 Brahma years is the life of Brahma. That is what what we are talking about. And once this 100 years are over, then a Pralaya happens, a Maha Pralaya happens, which is called the Pragrata Pralaya. And that Pragrata Pralaya stays for 100 Brahma years. So that is also for 100 Brahma years. Now this 100 Brahma years is divided into 250 years. First 50 years is called the first Parartha. The second 50 years called second Parartha. So there are 50 years first Parartha, the next 50 years is second Parartha. So the complete 2 Pararthas is the 100 Brahma years. So this is the period during which the Pragrata Pralaya is happening. And after the end of that Pralaya, Bhagavan will again, creation again happens from Bhagavan. Okay, and we'll see that. So in Pragrata Pralaya, what happens? We said this, it is called the cosmic dissolution at the end of the life of Brahmadeva. So it is not a destruction. The Pralaya is not basically a destruction where everything that we see around is destroyed. That is not what is happening. It is a dissolution. Everything that we see around dissolves into Bhagavan in their causal state. Everything goes into their causal form and then they merges with Bhagavan. So remember, in our body also we have a causal shariram, the Karana shariram. So that Karana shariram state, everyone will remain in that Karana shariram state and then they will merge with Bhagavan and is latent in Bhagavan. That is the situation during this Pralaya. Okay. So during this Pragrata Pralaya, Bhagavan alone remained. Everything else that we see around, they are in the causal state and they are merged in Narayana. And we said how this merging happens last time. We'll just quickly visit it. We said this Brahmanda has 7 layers, which includes Prithvi Tattvam, Apas, up, water, Agni Tattvam, Vayu, Agasha, and then there is also an Ahangara, which is ego in between, but then we have Mahat Tattva, and then finally Prakriti, Maya. Maya is the power of Bhagavan. So during dissolution, each of these layers, everything that we see, they dissolve into their causes. So Prithvi dissolves into water, water dissolves into Agni, Agni dissolves into Vayu, Vayu dissolves into Akasha, then Ahankara, everything dissolves into Mahatattva, and Mahatattva dissolves into Prakriti, Maya. And this Maya is coming from Bhagavan, so everything further dissolves or is latent in Bhagavan. This is during the dissolution period. So the Brahmanda, everything that we see around has dissolved into Bhagavan, and they all remain in their unmanifest causal state, which is the Karana state. Now, what is happening? It is only Bhagavan at this now in this Pralaya period. It is just Bhagavan who is existing, because everything that we see around is Bhagavan. So Bhagavan alone is existing now in the Pralaya period, and Bhagavan exists in his formless state, which is the Brahman. What we see as the form is the Saguna form of Bhagavan, but Bhagavan exists as the formless Brahman, attributeless state of Bhagavan as the Brahman that alone exists. And what else? The Maya. So in this sloga, what Bhattathiri is saying is that Maya, which is the power of Bhagavan, which is the cosmic power of Bhagavan, that Maya was also dissolved or is in layam in Bhagavan. So Maya was also in layam with Bhagavan. Maya, which comes from Bhagavan itself, is dissolved in Bhagavan. So there is no more Maya. The three gunas, Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas, the world that we see around, it's made up of Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas in different proportions. They are not under equilibrium. In the current world that we see, when creation is existing, or the universe is occurring, the Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas, they exist in different proportions in each of us. Some of us may have higher Satwa, some of us may have lower Tamas, some of us may have higher Tamas and lower Satwa. Each being is different. The universe is having a diverse way of showing the Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas in the beings. So during this Pragrata Pralaya period, this Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas, they come into one equilibrium. That means they have reached an equipoise. They have become into an equilibrium state, and they also dissolve into Bhagavan. So that is also now in Bhagavan, and they come from Bhagavan only. So they go back to Bhagavan. The Bhattacharya further said, the physical body, everything, the gross and the subtle things that we see around. Gross is the physical bodies that we see around, the physical things that we see around, that is the gross body. And then the subtle body, which includes our capabilities, our powers to do different activities, our mind, our intellect, our ego, all of this, our memory, all of these are subtle elements that we cannot see. We discussed this in our last Dashakam, right? So all of these, whatever we see in the universe as gross and subtle, they all also have dissolved in Bhagavan. They are in layam with Bhagavan during this Pralaya period. Further, from Maya, we see whatever changes that we see in the world is occurring from Bhagavan's Maya. For example, birth, death, the cycle of birth and death, that is happening from the Maya of Bhagavan. We'll see that later. Since Maya is dissolved in Bhagavan, there is no cycle of life. Birth and death is not happening. That cycle is not happening because Maya is already dissolved in Bhagavan. It isn't latent in Bhagavan. So there is no cycle of life happening. There is no liberated state in this Pralaya period because everything is now merged in Bhagavan. There is no day or no night. This day, night, all the astronomical things that we see, they are all dissolved in Bhagavan. So none of this exists in this. Exist in the sense they are all in their causal state merged in Bhagavan. So, and who remains? Only Bhagavan, Narayana, the supreme bliss consciousness, and Bhagavan, the absolute knowledge, right? The Brahman, that alone remains in this universe. That is what Bhattacharya is telling in the first sloga of Dashakam 5, describing what existed, what alone existed during the Pralaya. And even now also that alone is what is existing. That is the point. The point to understand is that Bhagavan alone is existing now also. So we'll see that in the next coming slogas. Going to sloga 2.
कालकर्म गुणाश्च जीवनिवः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषी त्वयि तदा निर्लीनदायामाययुः तेषां नैव वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भो शक्त्यात्मनातिष्ठताम् नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः സർവവ്യാപിയായവനെ അന്ന് ആ പ്രളയകാലത്ത് കാലവും സുകൃതമോ ദുഷ്കൃതമോ ആയ കർമ്മവും സത്വരജസ് തമസുകൾ എന്ന ഗുണങ്ങളും ജീവികളുടെ സമൂഹങ്ങളും മായാകാര്യമായ പ്രപഞ്ചവും ചിത്ലീലയിൽ താത്പര്യത്തെ പ്രാപിച്ചവനായ അങ്ങയിൽ നിശേഷം ലയിച്ചു കിടക്കുക എന്ന അവസ്ഥയെ പ്രാപിച്ചു. അല്ലേ, ശക്തികളായിട്ട് വർത്തിച്ചിരുന്ന അവയ്ക്ക്, കാലം മുതലായവയ്ക്ക് അസത്വം, അതായത് തീരെ ഇല്ലായ്മ പറയുന്നില്ല തന്നെ. അല്ല എങ്കിൽ, അസത്വം ഉണ്ട് എങ്കിൽ ആകാശ കുസുമ തുല്യങ്ങളായ അവയ്ക്ക് പിന്നെ ഉത്പത്തി ഉണ്ടാകുമോ?
So, Bhattathiri now continues in Shloka 2. The Shloka 2 is, it needs a careful attention to understand some of the details that is mentioned in Shloka 2. So, let's look at that. So, Bhattathiri says, Hey Vibho, all-pervading Lord, the Bhagavan, who is the creator, the sustainer, and the one who dissolves everything, is the Vibho. Tada, at that time, the time of Mahapralaya that we are talking about, the Pragrata Pralaya, at that time, what is happening? At that time, we said everything is dissolved in Bhagavan. Kalaha, which is time. Kala means time, but it has also a higher meaning. It's not just time. We'll see that Kalaha, with time, is dissolved in Kalaha, is dissolved in Bhagavan. There is no Kalam, because Kalam is coming from our own consciousness. We'll see that is dissolved in Bhagavan. Karma, all the effects of the actions that we do, that is called karma. The effects of the actions that a jiva does, that is karma, and the kriya that they do, all the karma of all beings, they are also dissolved in Bhagavan. They are latent in Bhagavan. Guna cha, we already saw the three gunas, Satwa, Rajas, Tamas, the three gunas through which every being is made of. That is also dissolved in Bhagavan, that is merged in Bhagavan. Jiva Nivahaha, all the jivas, every being that we see, living and non-living beings that we see, that is part of Bhagavan's body only. They are all merged now in Bhagavan in their causal state. Everything is in the causal state, in the Karana Avastha, merged in Bhagavan. And Vishwam cha Karyam, and the universe which is an effect of Maya, the universe appears through Bhagavan's Maya. This universe also, and Maya, the Bhagavan's power, Maya also is resting on Bhagavan. It's dissolved in Bhagavan. The universe, which is an effect of Maya, is also resting on Bhagavan. Maya is the Prakriti. Maya is Prakriti, and it is representative of Lakshmi Devi. That means this Maya, the Prakriti, is also resting on Bhagavan. And what is Bhagavan doing at this time? They are all resting in Bhagavan and involved in an activity. What Bhagavan is doing is his Chit Leela Radim Ayushi Twai. Bhagavan is, they are all dissolved in Bhagavan, who is absorbed in his own nature of pure consciousness bliss. Bhagavan is in a state of Yoga Nidra, or that is called cosmic conscious slumber. He appears to be sleeping. Bhagavan is appearing to be sleeping, but he's not sleeping at all. He is aware of everything. He's conscious of everything that is going on, but he is in a yogic or a cosmic yogic nidra, that is called Chit Leela Radim. Chit Leela Radim, that's how it's mentioned in the sloka, which is Chit Leela Radim Ayushitwai. Bhagavan is absorbed in his own pure consciousness bliss. Bhagavan is in his form, the Brahman form, which is the pure consciousness bliss. He is existing in that form. Nirleenadam Ayayuhu, and had completely merged in thee. So all these time, karma, guna, jiva, the universe itself, all of this has merged into this pure supreme bliss consciousness state of Bhagavan. So we already said this in the last sloka. Ai boho, O Lord. So Bhattacharya is saying, O Lord, Shaktyatmana Tishtadam. All of these time, karma, guna, jiva, and universe, they all remained in Bhagavan in their causal form. We already said this in the previous sloka, but here Bhattacharya says they are all in the form of their causal state, the Karana Avastha. In the Karana form, they all are in Bhagavan, merged in Bhagavan. Further, Tesham, of them, of the things that Bhattacharya just spoke about, which is time, karma, and all that, of them, which are like time, karma, etc., gunas, etc., which are now remaining in their causal form, asatvam, absolute non-existence of them, na eva vadanti, the Srutis do not declare. So Bhattacharya is saying, and Bhattacharya is making it very clear, during this Pralaya period, everything has dissolved in Bhagavan, but that doesn't mean that everything got destroyed and they do not exist. Whatever we see around, they all exist, but they are existing in their causal state in Bhagavan. Nothing is destroyed. We cannot say everything is destroyed. So Pralaya doesn't mean everything is completely destroyed. Everything is there, but in their causal state, merged in Bhagavan, because from Bhagavan only everything is coming. So that is a point that Bhattathiri is making it very clear. It doesn't mean that everything went into non-existence. Whatever we see as existing, they all are now in their causal form, merged in Bhagavan. No, but they now continues, no ched, otherwise, Gagana Prasuna Sadrisham, like the sky flower, which is a thing, we'll see what a sky flower is, which is not a possibility. So sky flower means a flower in the sky. A flower cannot be alone in the sky. Sky is there, flower is there, but a flower cannot exist alone in the sky. For a flower to exist, there has to be the plant has to be there, or the tree has to be there, right? All the other supporting elements have to be there. So a flower cannot exist alone in the sky. So this is a non-existing thing, right? This is not a possibility. So Bhattathiri is saying, the point that Bhattathiri is trying to make, so he's using this Ubama. What he's saying is that the point that everything went into non-existence is a wrong notion. Just like this is a wrong notion. The sky flower is a wrong notion. There is nothing like that. Just like that, everything went into non-existence. Everything was destroyed is a wrong notion. Whatever we see around is still there, and they are all merged in Narayana in their causal form. So to say that, Bhattathiri is using this example, and then he says, further he says, Bhuyah Sambhavaha, manifestation again, Kim Bhavet. In case, if you believe that everything got destroyed and then Bhagavan again created everything, how is it possible that everything that we see around manifests again as it is when new creation happens? So when a new creation happens, whatever we see around, they all manifest as it is again. So if everything was destroyed, how is it possible that they all come back as it is? So Bhattathiri is making the point that nothing is destroyed. Everything is there in their causal form, merged in Narayana. That is the point that he's trying to explain in this Dashakam. We'll see this again. I'll try to explain this a little bit more in the next coming slides. So we need to understand some of the fundamentals that we discussed in the first Dashakam here a little bit. So we have to, and I'll try to use some examples to talk about this. So Bhagavan, as we know, the Brahman is, we said this in the first Dashakam, he's Kala Deshavadibhyam Nirmuktam. He's absolutely free from the limitations of time and space and all this. Time, space, effect, cause, name, form. Bhagavan is not defined by any of this. They all come from Bhagavan, but Bhagavan is beyond that. So Bhagavan is absolutely free of all of this. What is time? We said this. Time is an object of our consciousness. We only notice time when we have that Kala Bodham in us. When we are aware, when our consciousness is aware of the current experience that we have, that is when we have a time. So time is the interval between events that take place for us. For example, one experience occurred to me, and that is my consciousness it has happened in my consciousness. Then another experience happened to me, that also appears in my consciousness. The interval between that is time. As an example, when we have a very deep sleep, when we are in deep sleep, we do not have time. We are not aware of time at that moment, because what? The consciousness is not, our consciousness is not in the time is not a part of our consciousness. It's not an object of our consciousness during deep sleep. So the point is that time is just an object of our consciousness, and therefore it is Brahman. Bhagavan, the Brahman, is beyond that. So that is the point that we need to understand. So time or Kala means when we say one experience and later that I say another experience, that is time, which is basically the Kala Bodham, the experience of that in our consciousness. That is when time happens. And this Kalam means not just time, it also relates to space. When I say there and here, that is also part of Kalam. The space that is there, this place, and then here, there and here, that is also Kalam. When I say form, or when we say form, that is that form to this form, that is also Kalam. We can say that person was in a baby form. It was a baby earlier. Now he has become an adult, right? So that form, the change, that is Kalam. But in that change, what is remaining constant is that Brahman, the inner Atma, Jivatma, Bhagavan is constant even during that change. Bhagavan is the constant thing, but the physical body changes. So whatever we say as time, space, form, which all changes, that is all Kalam, part of Kalam. So Kalam means change. Whatever we see as Kalam is basically change, and only the changeless can observe the change. The changeless is the Brahman. The Brahman is the one that stays constant all throughout the period, and only the changeless can observe the change, which is as I said, time is an object of our consciousness. And this change means death of one condition and the birth of a new condition. When we say change, it is death of one previous condition and the birth of a new condition. So as an example, a baby is born, it grows, becomes adult, then goes to an old age, and finally death happens. At all these time, the body is changing, right? The behaviors are changing, right? All of that is changing, but what remains constant is the Antaratma. The Antaratma in us is the Bhagavan that remains constant throughout this period, and that Antaratma is the Sakshi. He is the Sarva Sakshi who is witnessing this change. So he is not defined by this change. That's the point. So time is coming as part of that consciousness. Time is occurring, but time doesn't control Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the one who witnesses this change, and as a Sakshi. Same thing with day and night. So earlier we have day, so that is one condition, one situation, and that condition changed to night. A new situation happened. That is also Kalam. Change is happening, but what is constant during all this time is Bhagavan. Brahman is constant during all these times. So all this time, what we are saying as time, the Kala, now that is resting in Bhagavan. So it is in that causal form, it is resting in Bhagavan, and the other things that Bhattathiri said, karma, guna, jiva, all the jivas and the universe itself, they are all now dissolved in Bhagavan. Bhattathiri further says, so we need to understand some things that we have seen before. So this Brahman, which is the changeless, I already said this, Brahman is the changeless, and only the changeless can observe the change. And Maya is that power of the Brahman. The power of this changeless Brahman is the Maya. So Bhagavan's power is Maya, the Shakti of Bhagavan. And Maya is therefore represented as Lakshmi Devi, or in Prakriti. So Maya is the power of Brahman, and Bhagavan is always free from the control of Maya, because Maya originates from Bhagavan, and this Maya cannot control Bhagavan. Maya doesn't have any control over Bhagavan. Bhagavan is always free from the control of Maya, and therefore Bhagavan is called Nitya Muktam. That is what we said in the first Dashakam itself. And from this Brahman, through its own power of Maya, the universe is born out of the Brahman. The universe is sustained by this Brahman, so it exists in that Brahman, and finally the universe dissolves into this Brahman, right? And that is the change. That is the change that we are talking about. Birth, sustaining, and death, or not dissolving. That is all part of the change, but the Brahman remains changeless during all that period. And this Maya is the power of Brahman in which this change is happening. So I hope that is clear based on the previous example as well. So we'll see some more examples on this. So the second example is the idea of snake and rope. We have seen this before. So a person, let's say in the darkness, sees a rope, but misunderstands due to the darkness, misunderstands that it's a snake. So right now, for this person, this is a snake, right? But with some light, when the ignorance is removed, he understands that it was always a rope. It was never a snake, right? So the same thing, the same point in terms of that. So it was always a rope. The Brahman, we need to use that same analogy here. It was always the rope. Brahman is the rope here. The moment the person sees the rope, and because of the darkness, he misunderstands it to be the snake is born. So at that moment, the snake is born in his consciousness. And that is the Maya, and the snake then therefore sustains. The snake is born at that moment, the snake sustains, and the snake is there. But the moment the light comes to him, when the light is there, he understands that it was a snake, it was a rope. The snake disappears. So that moment it becomes a rope. And really, in reality, there was never a snake. It was always the rope. So that's the same thing that we need to understand here. What we see around is always that Brahman only. It was always the rope that was there existing. That is the same. That is exact thing that we need to understand from this example. Always it was the rope. Just like that, it was always the Brahman. That whatever we see around right now, also it is that Brahman only. Okay, that is a point. And so to understand this, we take the example of clay. We'll see a couple of examples. We have seen this before also. We have a pot. the pot is made up of clay, right? The clay is the cause that results in a pot. It can be a pot, it can be many other things also. So using the clay, we can make a pot, or we can make many other types, shapes of pots and other things, right? Same way, we have the gold. The gold can be, using the gold, we can make a bangle and many other things, chains and everything that we can make. So there are, again, the relation between gold and bangle. So many other things can be made. Same way, we have ocean and water, waves. Waves are nothing but the ocean itself. Whatever we see as the high wave, low wave, and all that, they are nothing but this ocean water itself, right? So it's just like this example, the pot and everything that we see that is made of clay, they are nothing but the clay. The bangle and every other ornaments that we see that is made is of gold only, right? Whatever we see as waves is nothing but the ocean, right? Just like that, whatever we see around as the universe is nothing but the Brahman, Bhagavan only. Even though they take different forms, like the pot has different forms like this, bangle and other ornaments take different form, they are nothing but the gold only. This side will change. That is the effect that will change. But the cause, which is the clay in this case, the gold in this case, the ocean, the water in this case, none of these change. They are changeless. So the universe will change. The universe will always change. That's the truth about universe. But what is changeless is that Brahman, the Bhagavan, the Guruvayoorappan, is the changeless that is pervading this universe. So the changeless is the cause and the change is the effect. Now, Maya that we just saw, Maya is not, therefore, what the point is that Maya is not separate from Brahman. Just like the pot is not separate from the clay. This is a pot, but it is nothing but the clay. This is a bangle, but it is nothing but the gold. This is a wave, but it is nothing but this ocean water itself. So just like that, whatever we see as Maya is not separate from Brahman. Just like the power to burn is not separate from fire. We have fire and the power to burn. The power to burn is the Maya, that is the effect, but that is nothing but the fire itself, right? So when you actually look at it, it is neither fully existent nor non-existent. Like, we cannot say, if you ask the question, is there really a pot? The answer would be no, because it's always a clay. But is this a pot? The answer is yes, there is a pot. So that's why Maya is, we cannot say Maya is there and not there. Both, we can say both. So it is neither fully existent nor non-existent. I hope that was clear. So whatever we see as universe is nothing but the Brahman only, but the universe exists as well, right? That's the point. Now, in reality, this idea of cause and effect, even though we said this is the cause and this is the effect, that is just an attribution. We are attributing it. In reality, as I said, there is only one. There is no cause, there is no effect. There is no cause or no effect. There is only this Brahman. That is the point. Okay, I hope that was clear. So we'll see this a bit more with some more examples. And this example is important because we'll see this in the next Dashakam. This is something that we see in science. We have all learned this, which is potential energy and kinetic energy. So we know this. Let's imagine a ball that is about to slide from a hill, on top of a hill. We have learned this in science, that the ball which is at the top of the hill, about to roll, it has a potential energy. Potential energy is the energy due to its position, right? Due to its location. So that is because of the height from the ground, it has an energy, which is its potential energy. So at this state, let's say the potential energy of this ball is 5 joules. Again, this is from science. So the potential energy is, let's say, 5 joules. And we also know there is kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is the energy due to its motion, right? Due to the change in its motion, that is kinetic energy. And when it is on top of the hill, just about to roll, it only has potential energy. There is no kinetic energy. So kinetic energy is 0 there. And as it rolls, what is happening? It rolls down through the hill. And when it comes at the base of the hill, what happens is it no more has any potential energy. The whole potential energy has got converted into kinetic energy. So the potential energy here was 5 joules. When it comes to the ground, the kinetic energy is 5 joules. This is the conservation of energy. The total mechanical energy is conserved in this process, assuming that there is no other form of energy here, but just I'm using it as an example. So just like that, the potential energy was there here, that got converted into kinetic energy here. So the potential energy which was there, which is, let's say, 5 joule, that gets converted completely into kinetic energy. Just like that, the Brahman, which is the potential, as an example, I'm saying that Brahman is nothing but that potential energy, the potential in us, right? That is Brahman. That is Shiva or Narayana. That is the Brahman. And when Maya happens, it is nothing but that Brahman is converting that into kinetic energy. Potential energy gets converted into kinetic energy, the activity that we see. So the Brahman is the potential energy, and that itself takes the form of the universe. So if you really see, this potential energy is actually equal to kinetic energy, right? The potential energy is getting converted into kinetic energy. Just like that same example, the Brahman becomes the universe. And there is no difference between the universe and the Brahman. Just like there is no difference between the kinetic energy and the potential energy. But one point to understand here is that from this example also, this kinetic energy depends on this potential energy, right? This kinetic energy that has just, in this specific example, the kinetic energy that is formed is because of the height that we have, the potential energy that it has. But however, the potential energy is not dependent on that kinetic energy. That is the point that we need to understand. This universe depends on this Brahman. However, the Brahman is not influenced by the universe. However, but at the same time, they are not separate. That is the key point that we need to understand. This Maya is not separate from Brahman. I hope this example was helpful in understanding that. So the Maya is not separate from Brahman. And this Brahman, which is the potential energy, is represented as Shiva and Narayana. And the kinetic energy, the energy of the activity that we see in the universe, that is represented as Shakti, which is Lakshmi and Prakriti and Parvati. All of this represents the universe. So once again, what we saw as changeless, in this case, the clay, the gold, ocean, which is all representative of Brahman. And what we saw as change, the different forms it can take, like the pot and other things, the bangle and the other ornaments, the different waves, and the universe. In this example of Brahman and the universe, they represent change. They are represented as Narayana and Lakshmi. So Narayana is the Brahman, Lakshmi is the universe. They are also represented as Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the Brahman, Shakti is the universe, Parvati Devi is the universe. The point is that pot is defined by clay. Pot depends on clay. Same way, Lakshmi Devi is dependent on Narayana. However, we cannot say that clay is dependent on pot. That is not a correct way of saying it. So I'm just using it as an example. Or we cannot say that gold is dependent on bangle. That is not a correct way, right? Same way, Narayana is not dependent on Lakshmi. Even though Narayana and Lakshmi are one, they remain the same. Just like gold and bangle are just the same thing, just like that, Narayana and Lakshmi are one only. But at the same time, Lakshmi depends on Narayana, the universe depends on the Brahman. However, the Brahman is not influenced by the universe. That is the point we need to understand from these examples. So what Bhattathiri is saying in this Dashakam is, everything that we saw has merged in their causal state. Everything that we see around in these, from the examples also, everything is that Brahman. They all merged in Bhagavan. They are all merged in Bhagavan, and they remain in their causal form, merged in Narayana. And Narayana is the supreme bliss consciousness, the absolute that is existing. Now he says, if they were absolutely non-existent, like if you believe that Bhagavan destroyed everything was destroyed, and Bhagavan again started creating, if that is the notion, then he says it's a wrong notion. Just like the notion of a sky flower, flower in a sky. So sky flower, which is the flower in the sky, which is a wrong notion. So just like the flower in the sky, which is a wrong notion, the notion that everything was destroyed and Bhagavan created everything, that is a wrong notion. Everything remained, whatever we see around remained in their causal form, merged in Narayana. And Bhattacharya further says, just as the flower in the sky was, is, and will never exist. This will never happen. It never happened before, it is never happening now, and it will never happen in the future also. Just as the flower which is in the sky was, is, and will never exist, so too the concept that nothing existed and that Bhagavan created everything from start is a wrong notion. As I said, everything remained in their causal form in Bhagavan. So creation is not like Bhagavan sits and then starts creating everything from scratch. That's not how it's happening. Everything is in Bhagavan only. And with Bhagavan's just one, which we'll see, Ikshanam, Bhagavan's one notam, one look, everything comes back. That's how creation happens, So everything comes back as it is. So, and Bhattathiri further says, if at all we believe wrongly that everything is destroyed, if you have a wrong notion that everything is destroyed, then he asks the question, how can then remanifestation be possible? How, when creation happens, everything is back as it is. How is that possible? So he's essentially saying that is not the case. Everything, what you see around is still there, but all in layam with Bhagavan. That is the point. I hope that was clear. This sloka had some technical things to be discussed. Moving on to sloka 3.
एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगदा वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयं मायादः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधु तस्या सहायक्रियाम्. ഇപ്രകാരം മേൽ കാണിച്ച പ്രകാരം 2 പരാർത്ഥം സംവത്സരങ്ങൾ കടന്നു പോയപ്പോഴാകട്ടെ അങ്ങ് ശിശ്രക്ഷാസ്വരൂപത്തിലുള്ള ഈക്ഷണം എന്ന ക്രിയയെ കൈക്കൊള്ളുന്നവനായപ്പോൾ ഭുവനത്രയം ആയിത്തീരുവാൻ വേണ്ടി മായ തന്നെത്താൻ ക്ഷോഭിച്ചു, ഇളകി വശായി. ആ മായയിൽ നിന്നു തന്നെ കാലം എന്ന ശക്തിയും സുകൃത ദുഷ്കൃത രൂപമായ എല്ലാ അദൃഷ്ടവും സ്വഭാവവും തെളിഞ്ഞു വന്നിട്ട് ഗുണങ്ങളെ, ത്രിഗുണങ്ങളെ വികസിപ്പിച്ച് വ്യാപനശീലമുള്ളവയാക്കിയിട്ട് ആ മായയ്ക്ക് സഹായമായി നിൽക്കുക എന്ന പ്രവൃത്തി ചെയ്തു.
So Bhattathiri further talk continues on how this creation happens, how this Virat Purusha of Bhagavan occurred. He is saying that. So he says, Evam, in this manner, Dviparardha Kala Vigadaucha, at the end of the period of 2 Parardhas. Remember we said the Pralaya is for 100 Brahma years. The first 50 years is called the first Parardha. The next 50 years is called the second Parardha. So there is total 250 years. So therefore 2 Parardhas. Okay. So Dviparardha Kala Vigadaucha Tvai Bhagavan thou. During that time, he says, Sisrikshatmigam, Bhagavan of the nature of the will to create. As I said before, Bhagavan, everything is resting in Bhagavan. Everything that we see around is still there in their causal form in Bhagavan, because everything is Bhagavan only. And when it is a time for creation to happen, what Bhagavan does is, he has the nature, the will to create. So creation is a bhavam of Bhagavan. Just like we have the bhavam of angriness sometimes, we have the bhavam of sadness sometimes, right? Just like that, creation is a bhavam of Bhagavan. It is happening in Bhagavan only, because everything is in Bhagavan. So it is happening in Bhagavan only. It's a bhavam of Bhagavan. So how is it happening? With the will to create. Bhagavan with his Ichcha Shakti and its will to create. Iksham, the glance. This is something we saw even in the first Dashakam. Ikshanam. Iksham means Bhagavan's glance, Bhagavan's notam. With just a glance, the whole world comes back, the universe comes back from his Maya. He says, Bibrane Tvai, the whole universe, with his glance, he cast his glance. Cast his glance means Bhagavan had that notam. Tribhuvani Bhavaya, for the creation of the 3 worlds. The world that we see around, the 3 worlds here is the Bhuvarswar world, but it also means the whole universe, the 14 worlds as well. So with that Ikshanam, Bhagavan's Iksham, which is his glance, Bhagavan's glance, when he cast that glance, the creation started. Everything that is now there comes back. And how is it happening? Bhattathiri is saying, Maya is the power of Bhagavan, the Shakti of Bhagavan. Maya represents the Prakriti, Mula Prakriti, and it is Lakshmi Devi essentially. So with Bhagavan's glance, the Maya is activated. just with Bhagavan's glance, the Maya, the power in him is activated. He says, Swayam Chukshube bestirred herself. Maya herself means Lakshmi Devi is Maya. Maya is activated. Just with Bhagavan's glance, Maya gets activated from him only. So Maya gets illuminated or activated. Further, he says, Mayadaha Kalu. From that Maya itself, that Maya that just got activated from Bhagavan, from that Maya itself, indeed, Kala Shaktihi, the power known as time. We already saw that I discussed this about Kala in the previous sloka. So that Kala that we spoke about, which is not just time, it has all those elements, time, space, everything that we saw. Kala Shakti, with the power known as Kala, comes from that Maya. Agila Adrishtam, all the karmas of all the jivas, all the karmas that we have done, the effects of the impressions, the good things and the bad things that we have done, again, which we said they are all earlier latent in Bhagavan. They were all dissolved in Bhagavan. They all come back from that Maya. All the karmas which were latent in Bhagavan, they come back. Swabhavaha abhicha, and all the resulting tendencies. Due to that karmas, we have some vasanas in us, we have some tendencies in us, right? For example, the tendency of each of us has let's say an animal, right? The tendency of a lion is to roar. It is not the tendency of a cat, right? So every being has its own tendencies. It has its own swabhavam. So the swabhavam, that is the natural tendencies in those beings and their vasanas, they also emerge, they also come back. Pradurbhuya, they emerge from Bhagavan's Maya. So as soon as Maya is activated, Bhagavan's notam, with Bhagavan's glance, Maya is activated. And when Maya is activated, Kala, Karma, Swabhava, that is time, Karma, the Vasanas and our tendencies, they all emerge. Gunan Vigasya, activating the three gunas. Once they form, they activate the three gunas, Satwa, Rajas and Tamas. Maya is made of the Satwa. Maya has Satwa, Rajas and Tamas. And earlier we said, during the Pralaya period, Satwa, Rajas and Tamas, they came into an equilibrium and they all are dissolved in Bhagavan. But as soon as Bhagavan's glance is there, the Maya comes, all these comes, and then from them, they will activate the three gunas, Satwa, Rajas and Tamas, in different proportions. And we'll see that later. Vidaduhu acted Tasya Sahaya Kriyam, and they all acted to support Maya in the creation. So Kala, Karma, the Vasanas, and the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they all now support Maya. Maya is Lakshmi Devi, the power of Bhagavan in the creation, the Shakti of Bhagavan in creation. And creation is happening in Bhagavan only. It is not a separate thing. It is not separate from Bhagavan. It is happening in Bhagavan only. But Bhagavan is not attached to it. Bhagavan says, or the point is that everything happens in Bhagavan, but Bhagavan is not attached to it. He is a Sakshi there. We'll see that. So once again, what is discussed in this sloka is that Narayana, who is the supreme bliss consciousness, the absolute knowledge, the only one, the Brahman, during the Pralaya, Bhagavan alone exists. Everything that we see around are in their causal form, dissolved in Narayana. The moment Bhagavan activates, or with a glance, the moment creation happens, Bhagavan with his just a look. So when as I said before, when creation is happening, it is not like how we create something. For us to create, we have to first have the Icha Shakti, we have to do, then sit and do that thing, right? And then everything has to be done and created, things have to be brought from here and there and made, and we have to make something. That is not in the case of Bhagavan, because everything is existing in him only. So just with one look, everything manifests from Bhagavan. That is the process of creation. And so the point is that is called Iksham, Bhagavan's glance. So Bhagavan also has Icha Shakti. So for creation to happen, there should be Icha Shakti, the will to create, Jnana Shakti, the knowledge to creation, and Kriya Shakti. For all of us, we have Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. But the difference is that for Bhagavan, with he also, the Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti is there, and they are all one only for Bhagavan. They are the same thing, and that is from Bhagavan only. All these Shaktis are from Bhagavan only, right? So just by Bhagavan's look, Iksha, which is the Iksham, which is the Icha Shakti of Bhagavan, creation happens. Now this Icha Shakti and Jnana Shakti is like the potential energy that I spoke about in the previous example. That's why I brought that example. The Icha Shakti and Jnana Shakti is just like that potential energy, right? And then with that Iksham, the Icha Shakti, Bhagavan creates. The creation happens in Bhagavan. That is the Kriya Shakti. That is the kinetic energy. And that kinetic energy, we said, is related to Maya, the universe. Okay, so the kinetic energy and potential energy are the same. As I said, kinetic potential energy is nothing but that, kinetic energy is nothing but that potential energy. Just like that, this Maya is nothing but that Bhagavan only. And it is happening from Bhagavan, but Bhagavan is not attached to it. So with Bhagavan's glance, with Bhagavan's Icha, creation just happens like that. He doesn't have to bring things from, here and there to create. It happens in Bhagavan just like that. And so with Bhagavan's glance, Maya is activated. From Maya, as we just said, Maya is the power of Bhagavan. Maya is activated. From Maya comes Kala Shakti. Kala Shakti is activated. Then comes karma, all the karmas of the jivas. Then comes the vasanas, all the swabhava gunams of beings that also appears from Maya. Kala Shakti, we said this before, it is not just time, it is everything that is changing. It is Kala Bodham, everything that is changing, that is appearing in our consciousness, that we see as changing. We observe the change. That is all Kala. So Kala means that and this, which is related to form, there and here, which is related to space, then and now, which is time. When we say name and form, this is the name of that person, this is the form of that person, that is also a change. That is also Kala. When we say cause and effect, that is also Kala. These are all attributions. However, it was always Bhagavan. That we remember the point that we said, it is always Bhagavan, but we attribute that there was that and this, here and there, all that. That is our attribution. So that is Kala Bodham. So Kala Shakti is activated, karma is activated, the vasanas are activated, and what they will do, they will then activate the gunas, which were now earlier under equilibrium. They were under equilibrium in Bhagavan. They will activate the Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas, and now they are in different proportion. The Satwa, Rajas, and Tamas for creation, for the universe, they are not in equilibrium. They are in different proportions. They are activated by the three from Maya itself. And when the Satwa, Rajas, Tamas are activated, the universe appears. The universe is again the Prapancha Bodham. It is a universe appears as a Bodham in us, in our own consciousness. That consciousness is Bhagavan only. So with they activated, the universe appears. Okay, so that is the point mentioned in this sloka. So once again, to understand one more thing here, the example is strong, and so this universe that just appeared, the Prapancha Bodham that appeared, that is nothing but this Bhagavan only. I said this many times, but I'm saying this again. This universe is nothing but this Brahman only. However, Bhagavan is not attached to this universe. The universe depends on Bhagavan, and he's the one that is pervading the whole thing, but Bhagavan is not dependent on it. The universe cannot control this Bhagavan. Just like an example of strong and the strength. So you have a strong person, and the strength in him is Bhagavan. The Brahman is that strength in him, and then there is a strong person. But they are the same. The strong and the strength are the same only. Just like that, the universe and the Brahman is the same only. The universe is the Brahman only. However, the Brahman is not under the control of that Maya or that universe. I hope that was clear. Going on to Sloka 4. This is the last sloka that we will cover today, and we will take up from Sloka 5 in our next session.
Maya sannihido pravishtav sakshiti gito bhavan bhedaistam pradibimbado vivishivan jivopi naiva paraha kaladi pradibodhidajat bhavata sanjodita jasvayam Maya sa khalu buddhi tattvamasrajat yosau mahanuchyate. മായയിൽ സന്നിധാനം മാത്രം ചെയ്തവനും മായയിൽ പ്രവേശിച്ചിട്ടില്ലാത്ത സ്വരൂപത്തോട് കൂടിയവനുമായ അങ്ങയെ സാക്ഷി എന്നാണ് പുകഴ്ത്തി പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ളത്. ആ മായയിൽ ഉപാധിഭേദങ്ങളോടെ പ്രതിബിംബമായിട്ട് പ്രവേശിച്ച ഭവാൻ തന്നെയാണ് ജീവാത്മാവും, മറ്റൊരാളല്ല. അനന്തരം പ്രകൃതിക്ഷോഭാനന്തരം കാലം, അദൃഷ്ടം, സ്വഭാവം എന്നിവയാൽ ഉണർത്തപ്പെട്ടതും അങ്ങയാൽ നന്നായി പ്രേരിപ്പിക്കപ്പെട്ടതുമായ ആ മായ തന്നെ താനെ ബുദ്ധിതത്വത്തെ സൃഷ്ടിച്ചു. യാതൊരു ഇതിനെ ബുദ്ധിതത്വത്തെ മഹത്വത്വം എന്നും പറയുന്നു.
So Bhattathiri further continues of the creation process, the cosmic evolution. So he says, Maya Sannihidaha, having Maya as adjunct. That means Maya, as I said before, Maya is coming from Bhagavan. It is the power of Bhagavan, and it is always with Bhagavan. Bhagavan is always with Maya. That means Narayana is always with Lakshmi. Lakshmi is always attached to Narayana because Lakshmi depends on Narayana, and therefore Maya is always accompanying Narayana, or Lakshmi is always accompanying Narayana. So Bhagavan is always with that Maya. However, Apravishta Vabhusha, but without being under its influence. Bhagavan is not influenced by that Maya. Maya is the power of Brahman, but Bhagavan is not under the influence of it. And what is Bhagavan? Bhagavan is not untainted by the Maya. And what is the state of Bhagavan? He is Sakshi idi Gidaha Bhavan. You are mere a witness. Bhagavan is just a witness. It is proclaimed in the Vedas. So Bhagavan is just a witness in this process. All the creation happens in Bhagavan with his own power, but Bhagavan is not attached to it. Bhagavan doesn't involve in it. He is the Sakshi. Everything happens in him, but he is a Sakshi because everything is Bhagavan only. So therefore, he is not attached to any of it. But from him only the creation happens. Just like the example that we saw before. Again, I'm bringing this example. The pot is defined by clay, right? The pot is defined by clay. The pot is nothing but clay. And the many other things that we can make using clay, they are also defined by clay, right? However, we cannot say that clay is dependent on the pot. That is a wrong statement. There was actually never a pot. It is always the clay, right? Just same example with the bangle and gold. And that's the same example here. The universe is nothing but this Brahman. However, the Brahman is just a witness, Sakshi. The universe cannot control the Brahman, but the universe depends on the Brahman. The same point. We discussed this in detail in the previous Shlokas. This is where it's actually being discussed. And what we said before, the same example, this universe is always changing. The pot is always changing. You can make a pot, you can break the pot, it will come back to clay. You can make something else from the pot can be converted into something else, but it's that something else will also be still the clay, earth itself, right? So this will always change, but the essence of it is always clay. Just like that, if you see the birth starting from birth to death, the form will change. That change is the Maya. However, what remains inside of us, the Antaratma in us will never change. The Atma in us is always the same. Even if you were a child, and even when you are in the last stage of our life, the Antaratma in us was always the same. That is the Bhagavan, the Sakshi. And Bhattathiri is saying that Maya as adjunct, that is same as Lakshmi as next to Bhagavan, next to Narayana. Lakshmi is always attached to Narayana. This is emphasized earlier also in the first Dashakam, if you remember. Bhattathiri emphasizes this very much. So Lakshmi Devi is Bhagavan only. Lakshmi Devi is not at all different from Narayana. Just like bangle is the same as gold, Lakshmi Devi is same as Narayana only. However, therefore Lakshmi Devi depends on Narayana, and therefore the creation, the universe depends on this Brahman. However, Narayana is not under the influence of this Maya. That is the point. The same example can be said about Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is the Brahman, Shakti is the universe. Parvati Devi is the universe. Same example. So the point is that Bhagavan is not under the influence of Maya, even though Bhagavan is with it. Bhagavan is always with Maya, but he is not under the influence of Maya. Maya is nothing separate from Bhagavan. Maya is Bhagavan only. That is also a point to understand. And we gave several examples to understand this concept. So Bhattathiri continues, Tam, in that Maya, Bedaihi, in diverse appearances. Now, but Bhattathiri is saying how, using this Maya, his own power, how Bhagavan reflects in the universe. Whatever we see around. So the point of this Dashaka is to understand that everything that we see around is nothing but that Bhagavan only. all the beings that we see around, all the experiences that we have, that is all coming from Guruvayoorappan only. And whatever we see is Guruvayoorappan only. That point is the point that Bhattathiri is emphasizing. So in that Maya, Bhagavan reflects in diverse appearances as reflections, as Pradibimbadaha, as reflections. Bhagavan has entered into this Maya and he is reflecting in it. But Bhagavan is, remember, is not attached to any of it. Vivi Shivan, thou hast entered, Bhagavan has entered, Jivaha Abhi, as individual soul also. So the soul of each person is nothing but that Paramatma. The Jivatma in us is nothing but that Paramatma, Bhagavan only. Right? However, we are influenced by the Maya in different ways, but Bhagavan is not influenced by it. That is the point. But he has entered all of us. Bhagavan, Guruvayoorappan has entered all of us and is in us. Na eva abaraha, which is not at all different from thee. And that Jiva, the Atma in us, is nothing but that Guruvayoorappan in us is that same Guruvayoorappan, the Brahman that we spoke about earlier. He's not at all different. He's reflecting in all of us through Maya. So the point is that the Brahman, the Paramatma, his own power of Maya, the power of Brahman is Maya. Using the power of Maya, the universe is appearing in that, and Bhagavan is appearing through the Maya. Bhagavan is appearing as the universe. Whatever we see is the reflection of Brahman in Maya. This Brahman is reflecting in the Maya, and that is what we see around as the universe. We said this before also. Now, there are some things to understand here when we say this. So this Brahman, the Paramatma, he has his power, the Maya, the power of Brahman, and Bhagavan, the Brahman, Paramatma, plus Maya, Paramatma with Maya, combining with Maya forms the Ishvara. So all the Saguna form of Bhagavan that we see, for example, the Saguna form of Bhagavan is the form of Krishna, the form of Guruvayoorappan, the idol of Guruvayur. All of these are the Saguna form. However, the Brahman, as we said before, the Brahman is the formless, attributeless. It doesn't have any attributes, it doesn't have any form. However, in the world of, while reflecting in Maya, Bhagavan takes a form, right? That is the Saguna form that we see around. That is coming from Brahman plus Maya. Brahman mixes with Maya to form the Ishvara, Bhagavan, which is the Saguna form that we see, that we pray to with attributes, the Guruvayoorappan's form. But the point is that Maya, again we discussed this in the first Dashakam, that Maya is basically made up of Shuddha Satwa. It is pure Satwa. That Satwa has not even a small tint of Rajas and Tamas. So Bhagavan's form, Guruvayoorappan's form, the idol of Guruvayoorappan, Krishna, all of these are made up, the form of Vishnu, all of these are Brahman plus Maya, but that Maya is made of Shuddha Sattva in this case. Shuddha Sattva is the pure Sattva, which has no mix of any Rajas and Tamas. That is the form of Saguna form of Bhagavan. What we are saying as Brahman is the Nirguna form of Bhagavan. Right? The Saguna form of Bhagavan is basically Brahman plus Bhagavan's own Maya, where this Maya is made of Shuddha Sattva, only Sattva, pure Sattva, without any mix of Rajas and Tamas. And in that case, there is no sense of individuality. Bhagavan as Ishvara, there is no sense of individuality in that. That is the form of Vishnu and Guruvayoorappan that we see. And the point is that Bhagavan is not under the influence of Maya, even though he is with Maya. That is the point here. Okay, that is the Saguna form of Bhagavan. Now, what about what about all of us? The people around that we see and every being that we see around. What about us? Again, that is also the Brahman reflecting in Maya. We said the Saguna form of Bhagavan is also Brahman reflecting in Maya. What you see around also is Brahman reflecting in Maya. But the difference is that the Maya in that case is Avidya. Avidya, so Brahman plus Maya, that Maya there in that case is Avidya, that is the Jiva, the individual. All the individuals that we see around, that is Brahman, still Brahman plus Maya, but the Maya there is Avidya. And what is that Brahman? Sorry, what is that Maya? That Avidya is Sattva mixed with Rajas and Tamas. So as we said in the previous sloka, during creation, from the Maya of Bhagavan, Kala, Karma and Vasanas emerge, and they will stir up the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas in different proportions. So we all are made up of different combinations of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, right? And therefore we have a sense of individuality. We are therefore Jivatmas. That's the difference. But what is inside us is that Bhagavan only. That Paramatma has entered us, but but he is not attached to us. Paramatma is in us, but we are made up of the mix of Rajas and Tamas with Satwa. Therefore, we have a sense of individuality. And this Jivatma, the Jiva that we are, is under the influence of Maya. So therefore, we are controlled by Bhagavan's own Maya. Bhagavan, as we said before, is not under the control of it. However, we are under the influence of Maya, and therefore we are not the absolute knowledge. We only have limited knowledge. Bhagavan is the absolute knowledge. We are therefore limited in knowledge. We are the infinite. Bhagavan is the infinite, Ananda, right? But we are finite, and we have likes and dislikes, because since we have Satwa in different proportions with Rajas and Tamas, we therefore have likes and dislikes. Okay, so this is so in this sloka, Bhattathiri is saying how Bhagavan, the Paramatma, has entered into each of us, or Paramatma is reflecting in each of us. But when he is reflecting in each of us, the difference of how it is in the case of Bhagavan and how it is in the case of us is being shown here. So we are a mix of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, but the form of Bhagavan that we see as Krishna and Guruvayoorappa, they are again Brahman with Maya, but that is only made up of Shuddha Sattva. Okay, but we are that Paramatma only. That is the point here. That Brahman is the one that is reflecting in us. Bhattathiri further continues. So the point of the sloka here is the reflection of Brahman in Maya is what we see around. The universe is that Brahman reflecting in Maya in each of us. So all the people we see, all the animals that we see around, the trees, the nature, everything that we see around is nothing but that Brahman reflecting in Maya. Bhattathiri further continues, Ada, thereafter, so once that is, but Bhagavan entered as Paramatma, as in is entered in each being, thereafter, Kala Adi Pradibodhida, Maya being aroused by Kala and others. So, Maya, as I said, from the Maya came Kala, the Vasanas and Karma. And now aroused by that Kala and Karma and Vasanas, Bhavada Sanjodidacha, and also aroused, prompted by Bhagavan. With Bhagavan's prompt. So Bhagavan is the one who is doing all this creation. So with Bhagavan's prompt and the arousal of Kala and others from Maya, what is happening next? Swayam Maya Sakhalu, that Maya itself indeed, from that Maya came Buddhi Tattvam. The Buddhi Tattvam is the principle of intelligence. So everything that we see around has an intelligence in it, right? We all have an intelligence in it. Each being has an intelligence in it, right? That intelligence is now coming from that Maya. Okay, the principle of intelligence, which is the cosmic intelligence. The universe also has an intelligence, which is the cosmic intelligence, that is now coming out. That is now projected. So Bhattathiri says, Asrajat, projected. That intelligence, Buddhi Tattvam, Sa Asau, which is that Buddhi Tattva, is called Mahan Uchyade. That Buddhi Tattvam is called Mahat Tattva. It is called Mahan, or Mahat, it is called Mahat Tattva. So once again, Brahman is there. From the Brahman, the Maya, Bhagavan's notam, and Maya activates from Bhagavan. Bhagavan's own power is activated. From the Maya comes Kala Shakti, Karma, and Vasana, which is all coming from Bhagavan only. The Vasana, the Kala Shakti, Karma, and Vasana stirs up the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, which was also earlier in equilibrium in Bhagavan. They stir that up. And from the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, whatever we see around as the universe, Mula Prakriti starts, appears. And in that, the Paramatma is reflecting in each of it. From that Mula Prakriti comes what is called as the cosmic intelligence, which is called Mahat Tattva. So this is something we already saw in the previous Dashakam also. We'll see that. So the same sequence, Narayana, from Narayana, Maya comes, power of Bhagavan, the three Kala, Shakti, Karma, and Vasana, they stir up Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and that will create the Mula Prakriti, or the universe. And from that, the intelligence from the Maya, through this Kala, Karma, and Vasana, and through the three Gunas, the Maya, from the Maya and the Mula Prakriti comes the tattvam called Mahat Tattvam, which is the Buddhi Tattva, which is the cosmic intelligence. And this cosmic intelligence is what is creating the Vishaya Bodham in us. So now we have, when we say our consciousness, we are attached to something, a thought or something, that is our Vishaya Bodham. That Vishaya Bodham and also the individuality in us. We say that I am this individual, that individuality and the diversity that we see around. One person is different to another. All this diversity and all that is coming from this cosmic intelligence, which is the Buddhi Tattva. So that has emerged from the Mula Prakriti, which is come from the Maya itself. Okay? And remember when we said the layers of the Brahmanda, we said that there was the primary cause from Narayana comes Prakriti. The next layer was Mahat Tattva. That is the Buddhi Tattva that we are talking about. So right now Bhattathiri is addressing how everything is forming. Earlier in the last session we saw how everything was dissolving. Here Bhattathiri is talking about how everything is forming. So from Narayana comes the Mula Prakriti or Maya, from Maya and then the Mula Prakriti, and from that comes the Mahat Tattva, which is the material energy, which is also known as Buddhi Tattva. Further, Bhattathiri in the next slokas talks about each of these layers, how they form, that we will discuss in the next session. So with that, we will end today's discussion on Dashakam 5, the first 4 slokas. If we made any mistakes, we apologize to Guruvayoorappan, our Ponnu Guruvayoorappan, and to everyone. We dedicate the session to the lotus feet of our Ponnu Guruvayoorappan. Narayana Ghila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Guruvayoorappa.